Delmarva Peninsula is rich with heroes in the story of human freedom. Figures like Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass come to mind, and while they lead the way, of course, but countless others have also done their part.
Advancing the cause of liberty for all might be the noblest cause of all, and it's something that lesser-known heroes also achieved. Since it's Throwback Thursday, Jim Duffy of Secrets of the Eastern Shore decided it was a good idea to spotlight a Methodist minister named Adam Wallace. Welcome back, Jim.
Thank you very
Yes,
much. Good
Jim.
to be here this afternoon.
So, Reverend Wallace is in your new book.
Yeah, so my new book is called Ordinary Heroes of Old Delmarva. And the key word for this story there is ordinary. All right? And I did this because, so the story happens in slavery times. And as you mentioned, we have heroes here like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman. And the book is supposed to inspire us to do things in our lives, these stories of the past that will inspire us now. So it's kind of a role modeling thing. But when I look at Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, they kind of changed the world. Mm-hmm. Here's the newsflash: Jim Duffy is not going to change the world, right? Adam Wallace, instead of doing like this much, Adam Wallace kind of did this much, something more achievable. You can actually step in his footsteps. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how he fits in to the theme of the book. He got assigned to Locustville, Virginia, to a parish in Locustville, Virginia. And he went down there and he just did a couple of things to give a sense of human dignity to the African-American people down there. So the first thing, on the first Sunday there, the way churches work down there, blacks were relegated up to the balcony. They came in, they went up to the balcony, they stayed there for the whole service. Now, he didn't change everything about the way that worked. But on the first Sunday, he got to communion service. And he said, you know what, I'm going to bring all the black people down. They're going to come up to the communion rail. I'm going to serve them here. And half the white people walked out of the church. He reported. And there was all kinds of talk about how they were going to try and run this new minister out of town and everything like that. It all blew over, but he writes with great joy about the smiles on the faces of these people who came down from the balcony and up to a small thing, not a world-changing kind of thing, a small thing. Similarly, he was out with his wife on a ride to the countryside down there. Have you ever driven through Locustville? It's kind of in between Accomack and Wachapreague on a back road. You should. It's really beautiful, and it still feels like the 1800s. It can, if you set your mind's eye right, it can really look like the 1800s. So they're riding through the countryside there, and they come upon two white men who are tying up an old black man. And he thinks they're being too rough with him. And so he gets off of the wagon. They're in front of a store too, and there's all kinds of people watching this scene. And he calls them cowards for the way they're treating this guy. And they basically threaten his life and tell him to mind his own business. And then they ride off. And he goes to the people at the store to try to figure out what's going on. And it turns out this old man's name is Uncle Sammy. And he had been freed by his owner. His owner died and freed him in his will. And one of these two guys, who are drunks and gamblers, one of these two guys is that owner's son. So he knows he's got this free black man. He's broke. He kidnaps him. He's going to sell him into slavery for money, right? And Reverend Wallace turns to the crowd at the store and says, well, we got to do something about this. And everybody's like, oh no, these two people are too dangerous. We're not going to do that. So he ends up dropping his wife off at home. And there's a long series of things that have one after another that they're all very interesting that I detail in the book, but I don't want to keep people here through dinner. So we'll get to the thing, which is he ends up finding a lawyer who will help him sue to get Uncle Sammy free.
Okay.
And then he gets the bad news about the judge that has the case.
Oh,
the
boy.
judge has a terrible reputation for never siding with black people ever in the history of his career. But it turns out that what strikes the judge about this case is the fact that a son is violating his father's will. And he's thinking of himself dying, and the judge is like, I don't want any of my kids doing this. So it's kind of like reading his own son's The Riot Act. And he frees Uncle Sammy, and he orders the two white men arrested. They soon flee Virginia and are never seen again. And Reverend Wallace gives Uncle Sammy a ride home. And the next Sunday, he's at another church in nearby Painter. And he looks up in the balcony, and there is Uncle Sammy, tears of joy running down his face. So once again, it's not changing the world like Harriet Tubman, but hey, he helped Uncle Sammy.
Right.
Something we can more shoot for. That's what this chapter's all
Yeah,
about.
the little things do make a difference.
Indeed.
Although
Absolutely.
big for Uncle Sammy. A big thing for
a big
Uncle
thing for
Sammy,
Uncle
for
Sammy.
sure.
Amen. A big thing for Uncle Sammy. You bet. You bet.
So,
Yep.
Jim, always a pleasure. I tell you, I hang on every word. Thank you so much for teaching us so much about our wonderful Delmarva history.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.